It's Tuesday, the 23rd of April, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has come out swinging against X, formerly known, of course, as Twitter, and its refusal to remove violent videos and images of the alleged stabbing of a bishop in Sydney's West.
X claims the videos do not breach its rules on violent content and that global takedown orders go against its free speech principles. Mr. Albanese said other organisations had responded quickly to requests to remove posts showing the violence in Sydney last week. He said it's extraordinary that X chose not to comply, adding that there is now a recognition that misinformation is a problem on social media. He said it's not about freedom of expression, but about dangerous implications that can occur when things that aren't true are replicated and weaponised. He said in the alleged stabbing case, it promotes negative statements and potentially inflames what is already a very difficult situation. He had plenty of support yesterday. Leader of the opposition in the Senate, Simon Birmingham, he was upset. He said X's claims that an order from the E-Safety Commissioner to remove the content is not within the scope of the Australian law is completely ridiculous and preposterous. Financial Services Minister Stephen Jones described X as a playground for criminals and cranks and a factory for trolls and misinformation. And Emergency Services Minister Murray Watt said the public has had a gutful of these narcissistic billionaires who think they're above the law.
So what's going to happen here, Sean? Is X going to take down the offending images?
Well, the social media group owned by Elon Musk wants to go to court about it. In a tweet, Musk said the Australian censorship commissar is demanding global content bans. Elon obviously isn't happy there. You get the sense he makes light of some of these things sometimes, perhaps doesn't take things seriously enough. X has plenty of form on this stuff. Last year, the E-Safety Commissioner commenced legal proceedings over X's failure to pay a fine. It's also running a battle in Brazil at the moment. Mind you, it has responded to takedown requests from both Turkish and Indian governments in recent months.
Okay, moving on to story number 2 now, and the latest news poll shows the ALP ahead of the opposition on a two-party preferred vote, and recent announcements around supporting manufacturing and energy projects have the support of the electorate.
Yeah, so voters like the Future Made in Australia policy, though it hasn't really translated to increased popularity, according to news poll in The Australian. The poll says both major parties' primary vote have lifted at the expense of the Greens, other minority parties and independents. Mr Albanese's net approval rating of -6 was up 1 point. Mr Dutton's at -15, unchanged. Mr Albanese is 13 points ahead of Mr Dutton in the head-to-head contest over which leader would make a better PM. Now, a separate Resolve poll for the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age shows similar numbers in terms of hot-button issues. Cost of living is top of mind, with 55% of voters saying they will struggle to pay for a major expense because their finances are stretched.
Story number 3, investors have been warned that angry politicians are a risk to returns from the 4 big banks, providing another reason why investment bank analysts are cool on the stocks.
So the big banks have done very well over the past 6 months. Commonwealth Bank's up 15% over the half year. Number 2 bank by market cap is National Australia Bank. It's up 17%. Westpac's 23%. ANZ's 12%. In the case of Commonwealth Bank, it's pushed its valuation to a record high. The other 3 are trading at multi-year highs, or at least close to that. The consensus among bank analysts is that they're too expensive, and some have put sell recommendations on the stock. Citi's Brendan Sproull says prices are too high and competitive pressures are intense. He warns that with rate cuts coming later in the year or early next year, politicians will push the banks to pass through more than the official reductions, putting pressure on earnings. He's likened it to the pressure the supermarkets are now under. According to the Financial Review, Mr Sprouls has a sell recommendation on all 4 big banks. Macquarie analysts are the same. NAB, Westpac and ANZ all report half-year earnings next week. We'll see a bit of share price action after that, I'm sure.
Story number 4, Qantas is breaking through one of the final frontiers of the national carriers proposition. It's soon going to offer free Wi-Fi on international flights. Sean, I'm sure you're very excited about this.
Oh, absolutely. The airline says it will extend its fast and free Wi-Fi to international flights from the end of this year. According to The Australian, passengers on routes to Asia will be the first to experience by the end of 2026. We'll all be getting it no matter where you're flying to. Now, Qantas has struck a partnership with global broadband services provider Viasat, which has made the fast and free Wi-Fi available. Even in regions like when you fly to South Africa, you go towards the Antarctica where internet is typically unavailable. What Viasat does is rely on what's called a geostationary orbit network of satellites, which orbit the Earth at the same rate As the globe rotates, such a network requires fewer satellites at a higher orbit and provides global coverage.
Finally, Sean, story number 5. Papua New Guinea Prime Minister James Marape says his nation does not deserve to be labelled cannibals and urged the US to clear up the remnants of World War II littered across the Pacific, following comments by President Joe Biden about his missing serviceman uncle.
In a statement, Marape's office said President Biden had appeared to imply his uncle was eaten by cannibals after his plane was shot down. Mr. Marape said while President Biden's remarks may have been a slip of the tongue, his country didn't deserve that label. Now, the US signed a defence cooperation agreement with PNG last year amid competition for influence in the region with China. Beijing, of course, has a security pact with neighbouring Solomon Islands. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in PNG last week. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is actually going to PNG this week. They're kind of the centre of attention at the moment, but they don't like that label. Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough indeed. There we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 23rd of April, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.